In addition to my role with the White Ribbon Campaign, I like to tell folks that I'm also an elephant hunter. So my parents are from Sri Lanka and they came to Canada almost 40 years ago. And with them they brought a lot of elephant memorabilia, elephant tusks, elephant statues and paintings. My favorite thing was an elephant vase, a vase made of elephant tusks when I was little. And I used to hide under the table when I was about 4 years old and pretend I was in the jungle hunting elephants. And to this day, whenever I walk into a boardroom or a school or a community center or a university to give a talk or to join in on a presentation or to listen, I'm looking and hunting for elephants in the room. And of course I don't mean real elephants, I mean the elephants in the room. We all know that phrase, the elephants in the room, the things that we don't talk about, the things that we need to talk about, the conversations that we need to have. And the work with the White Ribbon Campaign is engaging men and boys and inspiring them to be a part of change. The work that I do, I'm not here to lecture or to give answers, it's more to ask questions and to get people thinking. And so a question that I think has been on people's minds a lot lately, given recent headlines, what's happening from Nova Scotia to Steubenville to India, it's all around the world. These are conversations that are really everyday lived experiences that some folks are starting to really become more aware of when it comes to sexual harassment, sexual assault. The question that I pose for folks is, growing up today for our young men and boys an ascent or a descent into manhood? And it's something that I think we really need to step back and think about and talk a lot more about in the world that we live in. Young men aren't given what I call maps to manhood. Maps to manhood guides. If you are fortunate to have a male role model or a role model, regardless of gender identity, who is not just physically present but emotionally present, they might give you some understanding and some connection to who you are in building a positive, strong sense of self and identity. But if you don't have those role models, you are left to kind of struggle through the bombardment of images and messages as far as who you're supposed to be, what that's supposed to look like as a young man. The way we raise young boys in our society, universally, there's a lot of things that are in common. And part of that is this idea that, we teach them that the world is yours, that you have to take life, and make things happen. Take a chance, take a risk. You see someone you like, you go out there and you reach out to them, you talk to them, you try to pick them up, you take. And the way we raise young girls is a bit different for the most part. The idea is more of thinking of the impact you have in the world. Don't leave the house looking like that. Mind your manners. Brush your hair. What will people say if you look like that, if you act like this? You're very conscious of the impact you have in the world. Young men are raised to be assertive, which is good, because it's important to assert yourself in this world. But when there isn't a measure for impact and consequences, and they're not thinking about the impact they're having on others, and in turn themselves, that leads to some of the problems that we're having right now. And as my colleague from the TDSB mentioned before, we need to build empathy, emotional literacy, connection for young men. This isn't a conversation of us versus them. This is a conversation about us. And I think it's very important to highlight that and to get them to understand that. Young men really lack a context when it comes to this issue. We can talk about street harassment. And I read that, in Ebony magazine, they mentioned in the States that by the age of 12, 1 out of every 4 girls have experienced street harassment in the form of unwanted, unwelcome attention. By the age of 19, that number jumps to 90%, 90. That's a very alarming statistic that we're numb to. It's an everyday reality. Boys will be boys. What can you do? This is the message that we get around this. And the thing for me is that it's really not enough to say to young men, no means no, and these messages. It's great. It's an important thing to establish, but it's got to be more than that. What does yes look like? So do I keep pushing until I hear a no? That they need to kind of understand this, because for them, again, they lack the context. I'd love to have, they'll say, I'd love to have someone, catcall me or compliment me and on that I wasn't looking for. They don't really understand the context of it. So for us, it's to create that empathy, to help them understand what that means, and give them those aha moments. When we teach people how to drive, we don't teach them how to avoid accidents. We teach them how to drive. We teach them how to consensually navigate the world. As far as, we're all going in directions, we're all going in spaces. Let's consensually work together and change lanes, and move in a space where we're operating almost in a Zen state, where we're working together to go where we're going. And I think it's important to really talk about consistent, enthusiastic, real consent and what that looks like and what it can look like, and talk about some of the struggles around understanding or reaching those concepts. The White Ribbon Campaign started an online resource called It Starts With You, which gives educators, coaches, parents, father figures the tips, tools, and resources and examples to have those conversations around what are becoming, cliche words like healthy relationships and consent. But these are real, important pieces that we need to equip one another with. And for the White Ribbon Campaign, it's really engaging folks in the roles that we can play, the roles that we can all play to engage men and boys and inspire them to speak up to them. It's not just about talking about what you shouldn't do or not do. It's talk about what you can be, the person that you really can be, and the best version of yourself as a young man, as a boy, and as a man. And that men can be allies, role models, and engaged bystanders in this work. So I'm very thankful and honored to be here and to help share in those conversations around how we as men can build as allies, as role models, and engaged bystanders in supporting the work that women are doing as leaders in this work to end gender-based violence. So what men can do to support that work, but also how we can then take those conversations to the men and boys in our lives and talk about these conversations and bring them to the table. Thank you so much.